Chapter 291. After reading the letter in his hand, Li Bing heaved a long sigh of relief, and his expression relaxed. Chonggongzi, my father wishes for me to ask you a question. If I allow you to take him away, you will not be able to do so. If I let you take him away, can you guarantee that not a single word of today's matter will leak out? Li Bing held the letter in his hand, but his gaze was fixed on Wang Chong. To think that it would be Duke of Lu. Wang Chong was surprised as well. But thinking about it, it was impossible for the Duke of Lu to ignore the Duke of Lu Residence's schemes to capture Su Hanshan. Don't worry. I know how I should know. You can tell the Duke that he can treat today's matter as though nothing has happened. There won't be any news that will be detrimental to the Duke of Lu Residence spreading out from the Wang clan. Wang Chong said seriously. His goal was only to save Su Hanshan. Everything else wasn't within his scope of concern. You can take this lad away now. Also, Chonggongzi, I hope that you will remember what you just said. Retreat. Li Bing nodded and waved his hand. Without saying a word, he turned around and led the group of people away. Even Wang Chong was dumbfounded by how clean and efficient it was. In just a few moments, nearly 20 people had disappeared without a trace. Even the corpses on the ground had been dragged away. This Duke of Lu sure is decisive. Brother Su. Brother Su? Brother Su? Not good, the eagle, hurry up and support him. As soon as Wang Chong turned around, he saw Su Hanshan's body slumping to the ground behind the tree. With Li Bing gone and the danger averted, the taut string in Su Hanshan's heart loosened, and he couldn't hold on any longer. Wang Chong fed Su Hanshan a pill before instructing the eagle to carry him back to the Wang clan. Su Hanshan's external injuries looked very serious, but his internal injuries were even more serious than his external injuries. His entire body relaxed, and his body began to bleed profusely. Under normal circumstances, there was no hope for him to recover from such severe injuries. Wang Chong had to feed him 3 imperial life-saving pills that he had bought from Liu Zhizhang. Each pill cost 100,000 taels of gold, and only then was his life saved. After his injuries had stabilized, Su Hanshan's body strangely began to emit a powerful aura of life, causing his recovery rate to be much faster than that of an ordinary person. Roughly 3 days later, Su Hanshan groaned and finally woke up. You're awake. Looking at Su Hanshan on the bed, Wang Chong revealed a smile. This guy had finally woken up. If he died like this, Wang Chong really didn't know what to do. This was a future imperial great general. People of this level could be counted on one hand in the entire Central Plains. If he died just like that, it would definitely be a huge loss to the Tang dynasty. This vitality is really ridiculous. Wang Chong thought to himself as he looked at Su Hanshan. He had found an expert to examine his body and found that there were more than 30 saber wounds on his body, 17 of which had pierced through his chest and lungs. And of these 17, 11 of them were so severe that his life was in danger. This kind of injury would be a ghastly sight even to those who saw it. Putting aside recuperating, it would already be a miracle if he didn't die. But Su Hanshan had managed to survive. Not only that, in just 3 days, his body had recovered from a state that could have killed him several times over to a state of ordinary heavy injuries, and it was still recovering at an astonishing rate. Putting aside this life, Wang Chong hadn't seen many people with this sort of vitality even in his last life. It wasn't without reason that this fellow was able to become one of the most dazzling generals of the Kunwa training camp. There were definitely many secrets hidden on his body. Where is this? Su Hanshan asked. Propping himself up from the bed, his expression was calm, devoid of the panic and unease that an ordinary person would have. The first thing Su Hanshan said after he woke up was to observe his surroundings calmly. In my home. This is the guest's room. Wang Chong smiled. Thank you. Su Hanshan nodded. These were the last words he said. Even though it was just 2 words, given Wang Chong's understanding, this was already his limit. Given Su Hanshan's cold and aloof personality, it wasn't easy for him to say the word, thank you, to someone else. In both lifetimes, Wang Chong was probably the only person he had ever said those 2 words to. After saying those words, Su Hanshan sat down on the bed and closed his eyes to cultivate, not moving an inch. His face was pale and his body was still extremely weak. It seemed like he was still far from a full recovery. You should rest first. If there's anything you need, inform me at any time. Wang Chong shook his head. He had already experienced Su Hanshan's personality. Without saying anything else, he closed the door and walked out. Gongzi, bad news. Su Gongzi has left by himself despite the obstruction. Less than 2 hours after Wang Chong left, the maid who was attending to him rushed in. How long has it been? Wang Chong was taken aback. It's been around half a tea's time. We haven't been able to stop him. The maid's eyes reddened, and she was on the verge of tears. As she spoke, she pointed a finger outside. Wang Chong deeply creased his brow. He knew that Su Hanshan would leave sooner or later, but he didn't expect it to be so soon. Su Hanshan only stayed for 2 hours before leaving. Even though Su Hanshan's condition was much better, he was still far from being able to walk on his own. Furthermore, he was severely injured at the moment, so it would be troublesome if he were to be targeted by the Duke of Lu residents. However, Su Hanshan's personality had always been like this. If he was someone who would compromise so easily, he wouldn't have suffered such a fate in his previous life. Even though half a tea's time wasn't too long, it was more than enough for him to walk out of the Wang family residence. The capital was bustling with people, and once he stepped onto the streets, it would be impossible to find him. This is really in line with his personality. He doesn't like to owe others anything at all. Wang Chong shook his head as he sighed. Forget it, this matter has nothing to do with you. Let him be. Wang Chong waved his hands casually. Even if the Duke of Lu wanted to deal with Su Hanshan, since the other party had let him go that night, the Duke of Lu residents probably wouldn't do anything to him anymore. Even though Su Hanshan was severely injured, he wasn't in any danger at the moment. Right, Gongzi, that Su Gongzi left a note behind. The maid from the Wang clan suddenly thought of something and hurriedly took out a piece of paper from her sleeve. Seeing her clumsy actions, Wang Chong couldn't help but chuckle inside. You are called Xiao Mei, right? Wang Chong suddenly asked. Yes. Gongzi, you remember me? The maid was astonished. She had only been in the residence for 3 months, and she was afraid of being punished for her wrongdoings. She didn't expect that Gongzi would remember her and even know her name. It would be weird if he didn't. Wang Chong chuckled inwardly. In his previous life, it was Xiao Mei who brought him much joy in the final moments of his life. It was a pity that she ended up in that kind of scene. Xiao Mei, you will follow me from now on. Wang Chong said. Go Gongzi. This isn't good, right? Xiao Mei's face reddened in embarrassment. What are you thinking about? Wang Chong was amused by this fellow's wild thoughts. He felt both angry and amused at the same time. This fellow was still as clumsy as ever. As expected of the Mei lass in his memories. I mean, you will be transferred over to serve me in the future. Help me pour tea and fold the blankets. Wang Chong said. Ah, so that's the case? Xiao Mei understood, and her ears reddened. However, she soon forgot all about it and began cheering. Gongzi, I'm willing. Seeing the innocent and happy look on the young lady's face, Wang Chong felt the troubles in his heart lessen significantly. After sending the young lady away, Wang Chong opened the slip of paper left behind by Su Hanshan. I owe you a favor. It was a cold sentence written with a brush. The tip of the brush was forked, and it exuded a ferocious aura. With a single look, it was clear that this was Su Hanshan's handwriting. Heh, it's as expected. Wang Chong smiled as he crumpled the paper in his hand into a ball. Su Hanshan had a proud and aloof appearance, cold and unapproachable. With a single look, one could tell that he wasn't an easy person to deal with. However, he was still filled with gratitude in the depths of his heart. It was just that he wasn't good with words. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left this note behind. In the other world that Wang Chong came from, there was a term for this type of person, social disorder. Su Hanshan clearly belonged to this type of person. If I help someone, I'll help them to the end. Since I know that you're in trouble, I'll help you to the end. Wang Chong glanced at the wall of the courtyard before walking away with a smile. There was a saying, the gaze speaks volumes. Back in the room, Su Hanshan's gaze had already been on the verge of pleading with Wang Chong, but due to his reclusive personality, he was too ashamed to voice it out. After leaving the garden, Wang Chong summoned the eagle. Are there any clues? In the lounge, Wang Chong sat on an expensive sandalwood chair, picked up a cup of tea, and took a sip. 3 days ago, when he rescued Su Hanshan, Wang Chong had already arranged for the eagle to investigate this matter. Something that was worth Su Hanshan risking his life to infiltrate the Duke of Lu residence couldn't be a small matter. Something that was worth the Duke of Lu offending the Wang clan and the King of Song just to kill him couldn't be a small matter. Su Hanshan wouldn't speak of it, that wasn't his personality. Thus, Wang Chong could only search for the answer himself. Perhaps, if he were to find the answer and solve the riddle, he might be able to help Su Hanshan undo the shackles that bound him, allowing him to achieve what he was unable to do in his previous life. He would become a true imperial great general of the Central Plains who could stand on his own and rule over a region. Gongzi, I've looked into the matter over the past few days. Even though the Duke of Lu has concealed the matter well, I was still able to vaguely find out something from the mouths of the servants in the Duke of Lu residence. There's a young lady in the Duke of Lu residence, and she's being watched over strictly. Her meals and drinks are always sent over, and no one is allowed to get close to her. Also, around 3 to 4 months ago, the young lady suddenly moved out for no apparent reason. After that incident, the servants in the residence said that Su Hanshan's infiltration of the Duke of Lu residence was probably for that young lady. The eagle said grimly, 3 to 4 months ago? Isn't that the opening of the Kunwa training camp and the day Su Hanshan entered White Tiger Peak? Wang Chong creased his brow in thought. However, Gongzi, I have a feeling that this news isn't as simple as it seems. The eagle lowered his head in contemplation. What do you mean? I feel that this news was intentionally released by the Duke of Lu residence. As there wasn't much investigation done, it was easily obtained. However, as for the appearance of the young lady, her background, and her relationship with Su Hanshan, there wasn't any other crucial information. According to the rules of the trade, this can be considered as an opening. What do you mean? Wang Chong asked in astonishment. The reason why the Duke of Lu residence is willing to speak of this matter is to put an end to it. However, we're still lacking a suitable middleman. Let's sit down and discuss this matter. The eagle said. Wang Chong immediately understood the other party's intentions. Even though he had saved Su Hanshan that day, this matter wasn't over just like that. Thus, the Duke of Lu residence intentionally released some information. However, the Duke of Lu residence couldn't possibly reveal this information to a spy lurking outside. Thus, the Duke of Lu residence released some information, but not too much. On top of that, the Duke of Lu residence wasn't willing to reveal this information to Wang Chong directly, as that would be beneath him. Thus, he needed a special middleman of high standing. The Duke of Lu would tell him, and through him, Wang Chong would tell Wang Chong. Even though it sounded complicated, this was the daily routine of the upper echelons of society. Wang Chong was born in this circle, so he naturally understood this as well. Speaking of which, the Duke of Lu residence is still wary of the authority and prestige of grandfather and the King of Song. Wang Chong observed. Chapter 292. Fatty Wei, hurry up and make a trip down the mountain. A pigeon soared into the sky from the Wang family residence, heading toward the Kunwa training camp. This was the only message on the pigeon. At the end of the message, a tri-dot ink mark was added on the letter. This was the signal that Wang Chong and Wei Hao had agreed upon. There was no better middleman than Wei Hao. As a Duke of the Tang dynasty, Wei Hao's background wasn't inferior to Duke of Lu's. In fact, he might even be superior. Sending Wei Hao out would allow the Duke of Lu residence to retain some face. Furthermore, they were both scions of prestigious clans, and they were no longer the profligate scions of the past. It was about time for Wei Hao to do the things that scions of prestigious clans should do. Coming. The reply from Kunwa training camp soon arrived. On the letter were 2 large words written in flamboyant calligraphy, or rather, incomparably ugly. Wei Hao's calligraphy was as ugly as Wang Chong's. By the time the pigeon arrived, Wei Hao was already on his way. He didn't ask why, nor did he make any excuses. Wei Hao had complete trust in Wang Chong. As long as he called out to him, he would come over immediately. This was what brothers were like. Wang Chong, you were looking for me? It was nearing evening, and Wei Hao entered the Wang family residence. Without even wiping off the sweat on his forehead, he headed straight for Wang Chong's study. How is it? Brother, I'm here quickly. I saw the mark on the letter. It's extremely urgent, so I didn't rush over immediately. Wei Hao stood at the door with his hands on the doorframe. He grinned excitedly. He knew that Wang Chong had left the mountain. They were brothers, and it wasn't the first day that he had known Wang Chong. Wei Hao was willing to bet that something must have happened in the capital. Otherwise, Wang Chong wouldn't have called for him. It's not that urgent, but there's something important. Wang Chong smiled. Ever since he was young, whether it was his past life or this life, he had always liked this kind of personality. He wouldn't say anything even if he had to risk his life. Do you still remember Su Han's Han from White Tiger Peak? The one who shares a room with me. Wang Chong went straight to the point and told him everything he knew about Su Han's Han. Is that him? Wei Hao stepped into the room and took a sip of water. His face was also filled with surprise. In the capital, Duke of Lu has always kept a low profile. How did Su Han's Han get involved with Duke of Lu? He knew about the block of ice on White Tiger Peak. They were not to be trifled with and were not easy to deal with. Many people avoided him when they saw him. Wei Hao didn't expect Wang Chong to look for him. That's exactly what I want to know. This is also the main reason why I called you here. Help me arrange an appointment with the second son of the Duke of Lu. I want to know what is going on here. Wang Chong said, All right, leave this matter to me. It just so happens that my clan has some dealings with the Duke of Lu. I'll help you find out more about it. Without any hesitation, Wei Hao stood up and left. Wei Hao left in the evening, and Wang Chong thought that he would return soon. However, he didn't expect that Wei Hao would still be nowhere to be seen. Wang Chong sent someone to investigate, and all he heard was that Wei Hao had made an appointment with the young master of the Li clan to reserve the entire tavern. No one was allowed to enter, and no one was allowed to leave. Gongzi, should we send someone to take a look? Isn't this a little too long for a meeting? In the study, the eagle stood before Wang Chong and asked. There's no need for that. This is the territory of the Son of Heaven, and Wei Hao is the son of Duke of Wei. The Duke of Lu won't do anything to him. Seated behind his desk, Wang Chong waved his hands and said authoritatively, Don't use a person you doubt, and don't doubt a person you use. This matter involved the great clans of 3 empires, and Wang Chong believed that the Duke of Lu wouldn't dare to do such a thing. Just wait patiently. He will come out sooner or later. After saying these words, Wang Chong closed his eyes. Time slowly passed, and 4 hours later, a commotion suddenly sounded outside. Before the person could even be seen, a loud exclamation sounded. Wang Chong, Wang Chong. Inconceivable, inconceivable. Do you know what I just heard? Accompanied by the eagle, Wei Hao hurried into Wang Chong's study. His eyes were bright, and even in the darkness, they glowed brightly. After returning from the Kunwa training camp and chatting with the son of Duke of Lu late into the night, not only did Wei Hao not feel fatigued, he even seemed energetic. Did the son of Duke of Lu say anything? Wang Chong suddenly felt energized, and his sleepiness was swept away. Raising a finger, he gestured to the empty seat opposite him, indicating for Wei Hao to sit down. Wang Chong, I finally know what Su Han's Han is looking for in the Duke of Lu residence. He's looking for his younger sister. Can you imagine? That fellow actually has a younger sister. Wei Hao exclaimed in astonishment. Wang Chong and the eagle glanced at each other, and both of them were astonished. Wei Gongzi, you can't be thinking of saying that the Duke of Lu residence forcefully abducted a lady and oppressed the kind-hearted. That Li Bing of the Duke of Lu clan fell in love with that Su Gongzi's younger sister and forcefully abducted her into the residence, right? Yet, the Duke of Lu residence tried to kill that Su Gongzi out of fear that this scandal would spread? The eagle asked in bewilderment. Even though he was the one who brought Wei Hao into the residence, due to the lack of time, he didn't have the time to understand the situation. Hee hee, it would be great if it's really a show where the scions of nobility abduct a lady. Things are 100 times more complicated than that. Wei Hao chuckled as he crossed his legs, intentionally keeping Wang Chong in suspense. Isn't that the case? Wang Chong said, ignoring the gleeful look on that lad's face that was asking for a beating. Hee hee, you don't know, right? You might be scared to death if I tell you. Do you know that the real Duke of Lu should be that Su Hanshan? Wei Hao gleefully tossed out an earth-shattering piece of news. How is that possible? Wang Chong widened his eyes in shock. He knew of the grudge between Su Hanshan and the Duke of Lu residents, but Wei Hao's words were truly a miraculous twist. This was especially so considering that it was coming from the Duke of Lu residents, which made it even more unbelievable. Wang Chong's instinctive reaction was disbelief. Wei Hao, what's going on? Tell me the details of your meeting with Duke of Lu Gongzi. Don't keep me in suspense. Wang Chong straightened his back and said earnestly. He felt that he had probably come into contact with Su Hanshan's true secret. If he could unravel this secret, he might be able to open up Su Hanshan's path to becoming a great general. He would be able to bring out all of his potential and allow him to reach heights that he couldn't reach in his previous life. Hee hee, it's a long story. That fellow from the Duke of Lu residence was so hesitant, and he refused to say anything. He thought that Su Hanshan had said something to you, so he ended up spilling the beans himself. Seeing the seriousness in Wang Chong's words, Wei Hao didn't dare to continue keeping him in suspense. Thus, he revealed everything that he had heard in the tavern. The grudge between the Duke of Lu residents and Su Hanshan's lineage could be traced back to 3 generations ago, when the Tang dynasty was under Emperor Gaozong. Even though the Duke of Lu residents and Su Hanshan's lineage hated each other so much, 3 generations ago, the two were best friends. Su Hanshan wasn't an outsider either. He was a citizen of the capital. Emperor Gaozong's generation was a rare talent. His martial arts couldn't be said to be weak, but he was definitely not an extraordinary figure. Furthermore, he couldn't be compared to the current Holy Emperor. Given Emperor Gaozong's talent, it was easy to imagine the dangers he faced before he ascended to the throne. Once, Gaozong fell into danger and fainted. It was Su Hanshan's ancestor, Su Feng, who discovered him in time, saved him, and brought him out of danger. Su Feng didn't tell anyone about this matter, other than his only friend. That was the ancestor of the Duke of Lu residents. Gaozong was one of the few emperors of the Tang dynasty. He was indebted to another for saving his life, so he wanted to confer him the title of Duke. However, in his days, Gaozong mistook Su Feng's friend for the person who saved him. On top of that, Su Feng's friend was blinded by greed. Even though he knew that His Majesty was mistaken, under the allure of the title of Duke, he still accepted the matter. On the other hand, Su Hanshan's grandfather, Su Feng, was kept in the dark. By the time he found out, the matter was already settled. On the other hand, Su Feng's friend was afraid that the matter would be exposed, so he imprisoned Su Feng. The latter had always viewed the other party as a close friend, and he felt deeply humiliated by the other party. Although Su Feng's friend finally felt guilty and let him out, Su Feng's friend still let him out. However, Su Feng still died of grief and indignation. This was the origin of the grudge between Su Hanshan's lineage and the Duke of Lu residents. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. How could Su Feng, as a son, tolerate the humiliation and indignation that he suffered? Even though a lawsuit was filed and the matter was brought up to the royal court, the emperor's words were golden. But after all, the emperor's words were like gold and jade. Even if he had recognized the wrong person, he could only make the best of the mistake. Even though Su Feng's son was rewarded, there was no way he would accept it. Just like that, this matter became a deadlock. As such, there was no room for reconciliation between the two clans. After Su Feng's son failed in his mission, he fled the capital. Thus, he passed his will down to his son, Su Hanshan. This was already the 3rd generation. The Su clan passed his will down to his son, never forgetting to seek vengeance. On the other hand, Duke of Lu's lineage didn't sit idly by either. They passed down the matter as well. Even though they were in the wrong, They couldn't just sit idly by and allow others to place a knife against their neck. The Duke of Lu residence also did something as well. Somehow, they managed to find the hiding place of Su Hanshan and his brother, and they dispatched a group of men to capture Su Hanshan's younger sister. As for Su Hanshan, no one knew what he was doing back then. In any case, he wasn't on the mountain, so he managed to escape this calamity. The Duke of Lu residence didn't do anything to his younger sister after capturing her. She still stayed there with good food and drinks, and she was also provided with special maids to serve her. Other than the fact that she couldn't move freely, it was much better than living in the mountains. On top of that, no one in the Duke of Lu residence harbored any ill intentions toward her. The Duke of Lu residence's thoughts were simple as well. Since the grudge between the two clans couldn't be resolved, they would use his younger sister as a hostage. This way, Su Hanshan would have some reservations, and he would be able to prevent himself from doing something as extreme as the previous generation. However, the Su clan and the Duke of Lu residence weren't just enemies. In fact, the Duke of Lu residence's standing was due to Su Feng. The ancestor of the Duke of Lu residence had also explained these matters in detail in his family letter. Thus, there was no need for them to do anything to the young lady. They were still extremely polite, not offending her at all. Chapter 293. To think that the truth would be like this. It's no wonder why Su Hanshan seemed to have a knot in his heart in his previous life, causing him to be unable to become an imperial great general and become the greatest loss of the Central Plains. Hearing Wei Hao's words, Wang Chong fell into a long period of silence. Those seniors from back then had many opinions about Su Hanshan. Without a doubt, his fall was a heart-wrenching one. This person was capable, daring, and decisive. Even those who disliked him had to admit that Su Hanshan was an outstanding commander. Wherever he stood, even if the enemy had 1,000 men, the army by his side would never back down. As long as Su Hanshan wasn't afraid, as long as Su Hanshan was still standing there, his soldiers would never fear him. In that chaotic world, to his empress, Su Hanshan had always been the safest person in the world. He advanced and retreated together with all of his soldiers. And in the end, Su Hanshan fulfilled his promise to his soldiers. He and his most powerful army had perished together on the battlefield. This was a man worthy of respect, a true soldier, a great general of the empire. Even though he didn't manage to reach that step in the end. Back then, when Wang Chong heard of Su Hanshan's death, his heart was also filled with sorrow. This was also the reason why Wang Chong was determined to help Su Hanshan in this life. Of all the people in the Kunwa training camp, Su Hanshan was the one Wang Chong wanted to help the most, the one who wanted to change his fate the most. However, this wasn't something that outsiders could talk about. Wang Chong couldn't possibly talk about it to outsiders. The Duke of Lu's lineage sure knows how to talk. I don't believe that the truth is as they say. My clan does have some dealings with the Duke of Lu residence. But despite being in the capital for so long, I still don't know how the Li clan obtained their position as Duke of Lu. How shameful! Wei Hao said disdainfully as he leaned back. He valued his brothers and friends the most. Therefore, as soon as Wang Chong sent him a letter and a sentence, he directly left the Kunwa training camp without asking why. After rushing for several hours, without any hesitation, he immediately helped Wang Chong arrange an appointment with the young master of the Duke of Lu clan. Now that he was exhausted, there was not a single word of complaint. With Wei Hao's personality, he hated people who betrayed and coveted their brothers. The truth is hard for us outsiders to say. It's normal that you haven't heard about it. After all, this matter involved Emperor Gaozong. It's not the kind of thing that goes around. However, this matter also explains why the Duke of Lu residence is keeping such a low profile. Wang Chong's index finger tapped on the table. There were many dukes in the Tang dynasty. Most of them chose to keep a low profile after the death of their ancestors, staying away from politics to protect themselves. Even so, the Duke of Lu residence was one of the more discreet dukes who preferred to protect themselves. In fact, the Duke of Lu residence even planted a circle of trees outside the high walls. Very few people in the capital were aware of the existence of the Duke of Lu residence. Now that he thought about it, there must be a reason behind it. Not many people in the lower echelons knew that the nobility of the Duke of Lu's lineage was a dishonorable title. However, the royal court should have known about it. It was just that no one mentioned it out of fear of Emperor Gaozong. The Duke of Lu lineage also knew about it, which was why they chose to keep such a low profile. Even though I don't agree with the Duke of Lu lineage, their words aren't without reason. The grudge between the two clans is a matter of their grandfather's generation, and the people involved are already dead. Their generation is already the third generation, so it has nothing to do with the matter back then. Furthermore, even though Su Hanshan's grandfather passed away in anger, his father accompanied them in passing. This is different from ordinary vendettas. Wang Chong said. But Su Hanshan probably won't think so. Wei Hao said. But compared to that matter, I believe that there's something else that he's more concerned about. Furthermore, we will soon know whether the Duke of Lu lineage is speaking the truth or not, whether they are just feigning civility, and whether they are truly intent on changing for the better. Bring me a brush. Wang Chong rolled up his sleeves, and with a flick of his wrist, he subconsciously reached for a brush. But after a moment of hesitation, he smiled bitterly and drew it back. The eagle, how's your handwriting? Wang Chong suddenly turned to look at the eagle and asked. The latter exclaimed, as though he had just awoken from a dream. Then, a perplexed look appeared on his face. Our handwriting is ugly, so Wang Chong asked you to write for him. Wei Hao said. Is that so? Because I often had to transcribe messages in the past, I practiced my handwriting for a period of time, so it's still passable. The eagle didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This young master of his was good at everything, and he had his own views on everything he did. However, this handwriting of his was extremely ugly, and it was truly incomprehensible. Duke Jiao was a virtuous minister of the Tang dynasty. Naturally, Wang Chong knew what the eagle was thinking. He was also embarrassed about this matter, so he hurriedly chuckled and changed the topic. After taking an inkstone and grinding the ink, Wang Chong explained the contents of the letter while the eagle wrote it down. Finally, he stamped the Wang clan's seal on the letter, and a guard of the Wang clan sent it to the Duke of Lu residence. This was the official way for the clans to communicate with one another, and carrier pigeons were forbidden. On the other hand, with the Wang clan's seal on the letter, regardless of whether the letter was written by Wang Chong or not, the Duke of Lu would be representing the entire Wang clan. Wang Chong's letter was simple, and there was only a single content. In the name of the Wang clan, he hoped that the Duke of Lu residence would hand over Su Hanshan's younger sister, the girl whom the Duke of Lu residence had kidnapped, to the Wang clan. Regardless of whether the Duke of Lu residence's words were true or not, they would know once they saw the girl. If the girl was indeed mistreated, there was nothing Wang Chong could do about it. The grudge between Su Hanshan and the Duke of Lu residence was irreconcilable. Even though the current Su Hanshan looked like a joke, the future Su Hanshan would definitely be able to make the Duke of Lu residence weep. If the girl was still a virgin and had been treated well, it would mean that the Duke of Lu residence wasn't lying, and there was still a chance that the matter could be resolved. Roughly a day after the letter was sent out, a lady was sent out from the Duke of Lu residence. Wang Chong didn't meet the lady because she was sent to the Kunwa training camp by the guards of the Duke of Lu residence. Along with the lady were 2 chests of gold and a letter. The gold was left behind, but the letter was taken away. After the lady appeared outside the Kunwa training camp, she vanished into thin air. No one knew where she went. Alright, this matter is finally resolved. It seems like the Duke of Lu's men weren't lying. They didn't mistreat that lady. Wang Chong stood up and stretched his back lazily. The goodwill of the Duke of Lu residence wasn't without a bottom line. He had used the name of the King of Song and the Wang clan to help Su Hanshan get the girl back, so it was only right for him to express some goodwill. Help me make an appointment with the eldest son of the Duke of Lu, Li Bing. Wang Chong said. His big brother wasn't around, and his second brother was in the imperial prison. At this moment, he was the eldest son of the Wang clan. After this matter, Wang Chong specially made an appointment with the eldest son of the Duke of Lu, Li Bing, at his royal jade pavilion to express his gratitude. Just like that, this matter came to an end. Gongzi, I still don't understand. That day at the Duke of Lu residence, even my eagles weren't able to tell that it was a trap. Gongzi, how did you know? When everything was over, standing in the courtyard of the Wang family residence, looking at the flower beds and ponds before the corridor, the eagle couldn't help but voice the doubts in his heart. That day, if they had advanced any further, they would have been discovered. The world beyond and beyond the high walls were two completely different worlds. If Wang Chong had been trapped within the high walls, even if he were to die, the Duke of Lu residence could claim that nothing had happened. After all, why would the grandson of Duke Jiao appear in the Duke of Lu residence? If the Wang clan didn't explain this matter clearly, they wouldn't be able to explain themselves. Yet, before the duo could get close, Wang Chong had already noticed the danger and dodged the attack. The eagle, the eagles, and sparrows that you have trained are already very intelligent. However, there are some things that the eyes of a bird can't see. Wang Chong smiled. That incident happened a few days ago, and the eagle was still brooding over it. Clearly, he was still very concerned about it. However, the eagle didn't know that there was another reason why he was able to see through the trap. The Tang dynasty has a history of more than 200 years, and there are many Xians in the capital. No one knows all of them. But if you hang around here often, you'll more or less hear about them, or have heard some things about them, or have even caught a glimpse of them. Wang Chong explained. Those from the Duke of Lu residence are considered to be rather low profile. The Xians of their clan rarely interact with others, but in certain aspects, they are rather high profile. But in some ways, they're quite high profile. Whether it's the eldest son, Li Bing, or the second son, Li Nian, who Wei Hao went to meet, or young master, they all bring a lot of guards with them when they travel. On top of that, the guards around them are completely different from the guards around Xians like us. They are true experts that the Duke of Lu found from the sections. It feels as though they are always on guard against something, so no one really interacts with them. Wang Chong said. The eagle nodded. He recalled the two formidable profound martial realm experts by Li Bing's side that day in the forest. Li Bing brought these experts with him, and they almost never left his side. He even brought them with him when he met Gongzi. Back then, when Wei Hao met with the second son of Duke of Lu, Li Nian, he was the same. In this aspect, the rumors weren't wrong. But of course, the people in the capital probably didn't expect that the rumors weren't wrong at all. The members of the Duke of Lu clan were guarding against others. They were guarding against Su Hanshan. You said that the room of the Duke of Lu Gongzi was brightly lit that day, but there wasn't a single guard outside. People like them who bring profound martial realm experts with them when they travel, how could they not even leave a single guard at the door? Since you have already confirmed that it was the room of the Duke of Lu Gongzi, there can only be one possibility. That is, it was a trap. Thinking about it, Su Hanshan had been searching the Duke of Lu residence for several days straight, but he didn't seem to be in a place where there was no one around. Thus, there's no doubt about it. In truth, he was also astonished that day. But after confirming that it was the room of the Duke of Lu Gongzi, Wang Chong immediately retreated without any hesitation. These weren't things that the eagles and sparrows could see through. From this point of view, it could be said that his experience as a playboy in the capital was not completely useless. After saying those words to the eagle, Wang Chong flung his sleeves and walked out of the corridor. At the entrance of the Wang family residence, a carriage was waiting for him. Let's go, Wang Chong said to the coachman who had been waiting for a long time before stepping into the carriage. Now that the matter in the capital had come to an end, it was about time for him to return to the Kunwu training camp. Chapter 294. The mountains in the vicinity of Kunwu training camp were steep and treacherous. At the edge of the training camp, on a path that one had to pass through, a slender figure stood alone. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and he exuded a cold and lonely aura. From afar, he looked like an iceberg, standing there motionlessly, as though waiting for something. Brother Su. This was the first scene that Wang Chong saw when he arrived at the foot of the mountain. Su Hanshan stood there, seemingly waiting for a very long time already. Thank you. Standing at the edge of the cliff, Su Hanshan's eyes flickered. Ignoring Wang Chong's greeting, he spoke 3 words. How is your sister? Wang Chong was taken aback. Then he understood that Su Hanshan was here for his sister. He couldn't help but smile. Su Hanshan's personality was probably unchangeable. No matter who he was in front of, he would always be so distant. But even so, Wang Chong realized that every time Su Hanshan saw him, he could sense that his complexion was much more relaxed. I owe you a favor and I owe you a life. Su Hanshan said seriously. If you have any requests, feel free to tell me. Be it a mountain of blades or a sea of fire, even if it means my life, I will do it for you. This was the longest sentence that Su Hanshan had spoken to Wang Chong in the past 3 to 4 months. Su Hanshan seemed to have prepared this sentence for a long time. As the saying goes, a gentleman keeps his word. Su Hanshan didn't owe anyone favors, nor did he make promises easily. But if he made a promise, he would do it even if it meant his death. Su Hanshan had clearly thought for a long time before coming to this decision. Su Hanshan never wanted to owe anyone anything. But he couldn't reject the help he was receiving from others. He could ignore himself, but he couldn't ignore his sister. She was his only kin in this world. It's not as serious as you say. Wang Chong was taken aback for a moment before he smiled. Su Hanshan seemed to have been conflicted for a long time. He was probably thinking too much. He really didn't have anything to ask of him. However, if there was really a request, Wang Chong did have one. However, if you really want to repay me, you only need to promise me one thing. To the west of Longxi, there's a place called Chicken Crowing Mountain. Promise me, no matter what happens, you can't go near that place. Ridiculous. Su Hanshan was stunned for a moment before he flung his sleeves and left. He never made promises easily, but Wang Chong's request obviously meant nothing to him. Since Wang Chong didn't want to say it, he couldn't force him. Su Hanshan soon disappeared in the direction of the main peak of the Kunwa training camp. As Wang Chong watched his back slowly disappear into the distance, the smile on his lips slowly disappeared and a trace of gloominess flashed across his eyes. It was impossible for Su Hanshan to know that he was being serious. Wang Chong naturally couldn't tell him that this chicken crowing mountain that he had never heard of would be the place where he would die in battle. That place was still called Chicken Crowing Mountain now, but in the future, it would be known as the Great General Mountain. Of all the battlefields in the Central Plains, there weren't many that were more famous than that small mountain. Su Hanshan was the final great general of the Tang dynasty. Exhaling deeply, Wang Chong tossed aside the distracting thoughts in his mind and walked forward. The Kunwa training camp was bustling with activity. It had been more than 10 days since Wang Chong left, and the atmosphere seemed even livelier. Examinees were lined up in a row, shooting at their targets on the archery field. They were even equipped with armor for the battlefield. Some of the examinees even blindfolded one of their eyes to practice how to shoot arrows in the event that their only eye was injured. There were at least 30 to 40 times the number of examinees in the archery field, and most of them were fighting in pairs. Some of them were even fighting 1 against 2, 3, or even 5 at the same time. From the looks of it, they were extremely skilled. There were also clear differences in the weapons they were wielding. Bamboo sabers and bamboo swords, wooden sabers and wooden swords, blunt sabers and bronze sabers, as well as the sharpened weapons. The more realistic the weapon was, the more dangerous the training would be. It has only been 3 to 4 months since the opening of the training camp, and it's already starting to show its true form. Wang Chong thought as he walked through the bustling training camp. At the very start, the Kunwa training camp was just a mountain. But now, it was starting to show its true form. After traversing through half of the training camp, Wang Chong didn't return to his residence. Instead, he turned around and walked past the White Tiger Peak, heading in another direction. He was almost done with his preparations in the Kunwa training camp. Now, it was time for him to move on to the next step. Gongzi! Halfway up the mountain, a group of people had been waiting for a long time. Their expressions were rather respectful. They were Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Weisi, Chen Burang, Sun Jiming, Gao Feng, Nian, Su Qi, and the others. They had already received news of Wang Chong's arrival through pigeons, and they were already waiting here. Everyone had a solemn expression on their faces. The atmosphere was much more solemn than usual as well. They had noticed Wang Chong's residence from the very first day of construction. Even though Wang Chong didn't say it explicitly, everyone knew that Wang Chong was about to start building his own faction in the Kunwa training camp. From then on, everyone here would be on the same boat as Wang Chong. Birds of a feather flock together. When a person was born, there would be the saying that they were of the same clan. Everyone shared the same ancestor, and this was the saying that they were of the same clan. And when one was slightly older, there would be schoolmates. If they studied under the same window and were taught by the same teacher, they would be considered classmates. And when one left home, there would be the saying that they were from the same clan. Since everyone was from the same place, they would take care of one another. This was the saying that they were from the same clan. And when they were successful in their career, they would be conferred a title and work in the royal court. This was the saying that they were from the same clan. Everyone had their own group. Only when there was a group would there be protection. This was how most of the scions of the prestigious clans came to be. Zhuang Jingping and Qi Weisi had been influenced by their surroundings since young, so they couldn't be more familiar with this. The two of them had wanted to persuade Wang Chong, but fortunately, Wang Chong had decided to act on his own. Are you ready? Wang Chong turned to look at Zhao Jingdian. He didn't bring Jingdian with him when he left the mountain, so he arranged for him to stay here. Zhao Jingdian was his comrade and subordinate in his previous life. Naturally, it was time for him to familiarize himself with such matters. Everything is ready. Lieutenant Li has been here a few times before, and he even sent guards to guard the place. All of the renovations have been completed. Let's wait for NZ to make arrangements. Zhao Jingdian said. Wang Chong nodded. He knew that the Lieutenant Li whom Zhao Jingdian was referring to was his uncle, Li Lin. Li Lin was the one who had been making the arrangements for him on this mountain. After greeting the crowd, Wang Chong led the way to the peak of the mountain. Sunlight shone down, and from afar, a resplendent residence could be seen standing on the peak of the mountain. The sun shone down, illuminating all the roof tiles with a golden luster. It was a beautiful sight to behold. After 4 months of construction and renovation, Wang Chong's residence by the lakeside of White Tiger Peak was finally completed. The eaves and arches of the residence exuded a sense of grandeur and luxury. It's finally done. Wang Chong heaved a sigh of relief as he looked at the residence that resembled a fairyland. Food had to be eaten bite by bite, and a journey had to be taken one step at a time. Ever since he entered the Kunwa training camp, he could finally start on his plans. Not far to the east, the Kunwa training camp housed the most talented generals in the entire empire. Every single one of them was a valuable asset to the empire. Every single one of them could be used by him. With his talent as a commander and these talented generals, he would be able to prop up the entire empire. This was where his dreams lay, and it was also the cornerstone for him to change his destiny. As the saying goes, a building 100 feet high is built from the earth. In the future, everyone would remember this place. Gongzi! As they reached the peak of the mountain, a few guards came forward to welcome them. It had been some time since the construction of the residence was completed. However, this was the first time Wang Chong had been here. Wang Chong led the crowd through the purple gate and into the tall walls of the residence. This was a completely different world. Gardens, ponds, corridors, rockeries, pavilions. There were even sculptures made by top-notch craftsmen. All of the eaves, doors, windows, and pillars were carved with exquisite craftsmanship. The materials used to paint the walls were also top-notch, giving off a grand impression. TSK, this pillar isn't simple. I remember seeing it before. It costs 700 gold taels each, and I think it's made of gold-threaded Jinan wood. The flying clouds on the eaves are flying in the air. I remember that they cost 50 taels of silver each. This is really beautiful. This place is much better than our training camp. My gosh, I don't think I can afford even a single pillar here. Other than Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, and Qi Weisi, The others had just received the news and rushed over. This was their first time here. The interior of Wang Chong's residence was even more beautiful than the exterior. Su Qi, Gao Feng, Nye Yan, and the others were all descendants of officials. Even though they came from well-to-do families, they were still far from being able to afford such items. Even though they knew that Wang Chong was wealthy, this was the first time they were witnessing the extent of his wealth. Regardless of whether it was the wood for the pavilions or the ponds in the garden, they were all made of precious gold-threaded Jinan wood, red sandalwood, and white jade. However, the crux of the matter was that it wasn't just a simple stacking. Even though the materials were expensive, the design was elegant and ancient. Placed in the depths of the mountain, it seemed elegant and tranquil. Everyone fell in love with this place at first glance. Wang Chong chuckled. Seeing how everyone was attracted by the interior as soon as they entered the walls, touching and admiring everything, he couldn't help but chuckle. He didn't participate in the construction of this place at all. However, he was the one who provided the blueprints for the construction. Other than the ordinary flying eaves and arches of this era, there were also many unique features that Wang Chong had incorporated into the other era. But at the same time, the two of them fused together perfectly. For example, the wisteria chairs were woven with finger-thick wisteria, making them comfortable to the touch and sit on. These items were unique, and they blended in perfectly with the environment here. Chapter 295. As Wang Chong's first base in the Kunwa training camp, Wang Chong was extremely important to him. Thus, the renovations were extremely meticulous. And the results showed that it was indeed effective. Is everything prepared? While everyone was looking around, Wang Chong turned to look at the guard by the side. He vaguely recalled that this person was called Huang Liang, and Uncle Li Lin had mentioned him before. Everything here was under this person's control, and he was an extremely reliable person. Gongzi, everything is prepared. Huang Liang replied with a deep and respectful voice. Lead the way. Wang Chong nodded. At the entrance of the main hall of the residence, several 6G long pieces of paper were laid out, and a paper laminator was standing respectfully by the side. Beside the paper was a bowl-sized ink pot. When Wang Chong walked up to the entrance, he immediately caught everyone's attention. Zhao Jingyan, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Weisi, Su Qi, Gao Feng, Nye Yan, Chen Burang, and Chen Zhiming walked over. Their gazes were gathered on Wang Chong, and there was a faint hint of expectation in their eyes. Bring me a brush, Wang Chong said as he stretched out his hand. Gongzi! A guard immediately passed the brush over to Wang Chong. The atmosphere suddenly turned solemn. All of the construction had been completed, and the interior decorations had been completed as well. According to the rules, as the owner of this residence, he should name it after the construction was completed. But everyone knew that there was more to it than that. Wang Chong gripped the heavy brush, a pensive look on his face. Ever since his reincarnation, this was the first time he had stepped out and presented himself and the Wang clan to the world. This residence and this space would be of great significance to him in the future. Dipping the brush several times larger than an ordinary brush into the bowl-sized ink pot, Wang Chong already knew what he should do. Strategizing the world. Protect the common people through martial arts. 2 sentences of 14 words were eloquent. Wang Chong's righteousness was unflattering. However, Wang Chong's cursive script was a different story. As the saying goes, the brush moves like a serpent. The most important thing about cursive writing was the emotions contained in the writer, while calligraphy was secondary. These 2 lines of words contained Wang Chong's life's revenge. Although it was not the work of a master, it had a majestic aura. As a general, one must know the art of war and not know strategy. The Kunwa training camp was a general training camp, not a training camp for soldiers. As a general, the most important thing was to stop the war and suppress the world. In the future, this place would be called Deflecting Blade Manor. This is the true essence of martial arts. As Wang Chong spoke, his brush moved like a serpent as he wrote the last horizontal line. When these words were written, a majestic aura gushed out from the paper. Stop the war, stop the war. He did not manage to do it in his previous life, and this was his deepest regret. That was why he came back from the dead. Glory, riches, favor, loss. In this life, he no longer cared about these things. No matter what price he had to pay, he had to accomplish this goal. Because this was his mission. In that instant, Wang Chong felt agitated, and a majestic aura gushed out from his body. It wasn't the aura of this 15-year-old boy, but the war god of the Central Plains, the final grand marshal of the Central Plains, who had gone through countless trials and tribulations in his previous life. In that instant, the entire deflecting blade manor fell silent. Looking at the words on the paper and the majestic aura emanating from Wang Chong, everyone in the courtyard was dazed. Even the Imperial Army guard's face paled. The aura emanating from Wang Chong was simply too powerful. In his previous life, he was the war god of the Central Plains, a figure whom even the foreign cavalrymen feared. How could these ordinary Imperial Army guards possibly bear such an aura? All of the guards, including Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Weisi, Sun Jiming, and Chen Burang, were deeply intimidated, and none of them could say a word. No one knew what had happened to Wang Chong. But that unparalleled might, the majestic aura, and the aura he exuded were deeply imprinted in everyone's mind. Yet, that intimidating aura only lasted for an instant before disappearing without a trace. Wang Chong retracted the aura he exuded from his previous life, and just like a massive iceberg, he sank back to the bottom of the lake after revealing a corner of his true self. This wasn't the time for him to reveal his other self. Wang Chong soon reverted back to his original appearance. "Old mister, I'll have to trouble you to frame it for me," Wang Chong said to the old mister whom he had invited over from the capital. "Yes, Gongzi." The old mister glanced at the two poems on the table, and a hint of admiration flashed across his eyes. Then he respectfully took the two poems from Wang Chong and began to frame them. Behind him, the crowd also seemed to have awoken from a dream. Deflecting Blade Manor. Deflecting Blade Manor. What a good name. It's very poetic, and it suits the mood of this place. To think that Gongzi's poem would be so good as well. Everyone quickly recovered from their daze. Clearly, they were very fond of this name. It's good that everyone likes it. Stopping war through martial arts is the way to bring peace to the world. The goal of us, the students of Kunwa Training Camp, is to stop war and protect the world. In the future, feel free to visit us whenever you have the time. Wang Chong smiled as he turned to the crowd behind him. "Gongzi," the crowd replied respectfully. Unknowingly, they had already formed a group that viewed Wang Chong as their leader. Be it in terms of strength, standing, reputation, or background, Wang Chong was the undisputed number one. And Wang Chong had already proven himself through his actions. "Jingdian, this is the first batch of names that I've drafted. Help me distribute them. Soldiers are valued for their quality, not quantity. 7 people should be enough for the first batch." Wang Chong passed over a list of names that he had prepared in advance. There were 100 generals in Kunwa Training Camp, but Wang Chong didn't intend to invite all of them. Rice had to be eaten bite by bite. First, Wang Chong wanted to invite the most influential people to join Deflecting Blade Manor. Once Deflecting Blade Manor's influence in Kunwa Training Camp grew, there would be an endless stream of people trying to join Deflecting Blade Manor. When that time came, Wang Chong could send out invitations to these people, and everything would fall into place. "Gongzi, will the art of war be taught here?" A voice came from the side. Sun Jiming was standing in the crowd, looking fervently at Wang Chong with a fiery gaze. He remembered that Wang Chong had mentioned the art of war. Martial arts was a minor Dao, but the art of war was the major Dao. It was something that only the clans of generals could grasp. And it wasn't taught in Kunwa Training Camp. He had looked into it over the past few months. There was no doubt about it. Wang Chong nodded. He wasn't surprised at Sun Jiming's reaction. This was a natural talent for generals, and in his previous life, he was the one who loved to launch surprise attacks and ambush. Sun Jiming's instincts had awakened. As a general, one must know the art of war. Those who wish to enter Deflecting Blade Manor in the future will have to pass the most basic examination on the art of war. Wang Chong said, "The art of war in this world was truly crude." At the very least, that was how Wang Chong saw it. There was another reason why Wang Chong was conducting the examination on the art of war in deflecting blade manner. He hoped to use his proficiency as the war saint of the Central Plains to temper and nurture the future generals of the Central Plains. If these future generals could pass his examination, they would become even stronger than they were in his previous life. And to the Tang dynasty, this would be a blessing in disguise. As the last Grand Marshal of the Central Plains in his previous life, Wang Chong had used tens of thousands of soldiers to hold back an enemy that was 10 times his size, allowing the Central Plains to survive for several decades and wipe out a large number of foreign invaders. In terms of the art of war, there was no one in this era who could surpass him. Even the legendary war god of the Tang dynasty, So Yongsan, had lost to him, needless to say, others. Art of war? Lad, you sure talk big. Just as Wang Chong said those words, a voice suddenly sounded from outside, and it was swiftly approaching. In the blink of an eye, several figures appeared at the entrance. Instructor Zhao. Instructor Zhou. At the gate of the deflecting blade manor, 2 muscular and valiant figures walked in, one in front and one behind, their heads held high. Even Wang Chong was surprised to see them. To think that they would be Zhao Qianqiu and Zhou Huang. The former was the teacher of Wang Chong and Zhao Jingdian in the training camp, while the latter had a life-and-death comrade with them on the night of the Gogrian assault. Instructors, why are you here? Surprised, Wang Chong hurried forward to welcome them. Haha, I've always wanted to see who would be so daring as to set his sights on the Kunwa training camp and build a private residence so close to it. And now, it's indeed you. Zhao Qianqiu laughed heartily. Zhou Huang hurriedly walked forward and greeted the crowd. You're really a cunning fellow. The royal court is currently clearing up the surrounding land. I heard that the Bureau of Works and the Court of Judicial Review have issued a joint decree that all land within 10 li of the training camp is strictly prohibited and no private residences are to be built. I heard that the royal court has already sold the rights to this mountain to you. I couldn't even take it back even if I wanted to. Zhou Huang reprimanded jokingly. That lad has always been this fast, don't you know that? In my opinion, the rule from the Bureau of Works and the Court of Judicial Review is aimed at that lad. Those bastards from the Court of Judicial Review didn't even take a look when they were approving the land. They only realized it after making such a huge loophole. Zhao Qianqiu said, Lords, you already know that this is my private residence. Is it really appropriate for you to say such words in front of me? Wang Chong chuckled. As such, as soon as Kunwa training camp opened, Zhang Xian immediately bought the land here. Given the current situation, it was within his expectations that the royal court would ban the sale of land in the vicinity. It's best if I say it in front of you. There's no need to stand on ceremony with that lad. Zhao Qianqiu reprimanded jokingly. Casually pulling a purple rattan chair over, Zhao Qianqiu couldn't help but praise it for its comfort. Lad, you said that you're conducting a military strategy examination here. You sure are arrogant. Let me ask you, do you know the art of war? Zhao Qianqiu sat down on the rattan chair and lightly knocked on the table before him as he asked. Lord, are you going to guide me? Wang Chong chuckled as he sat opposite Zhao Qianqiu. It seems like you aren't convinced. It's fine for you kids to spar with one another. As for the art of war, don't lead them astray. This isn't something that can be taught casually. Come. If you can defeat me, you can teach them the art of war here. Zhao Qianqiu said. Even though his words sounded like a joke, Wang Chong could sense a hint of seriousness in Zhao Qianqiu's words. Clearly, Zhao Qianqiu didn't approve of him teaching the art of war here. The art of war was the way of a general. The slightest mistake could result in death. Not only would he be harming himself, his subordinates would also die a graveless death. This was also the reason why the Kunwa training camp didn't teach the art of war. Chapter 296. Since Lord is willing to give me pointers, I'll gladly accept it. Wang Chong faintly smiled. Deflecting Blade Manor had already prepared a game of Go, which Wang Chong had intended to use to test others. But now, he decided to use it against Wang Chong and Zhao Qianqiu. Instructor is going to play chess with Wang Chong. I wonder which of the two is stronger. Even though I would like to say Gongzi, instructor should be stronger. Upon hearing that Wang Chong was going to compete with Zhao Qianqiu in the art of war, the crowd immediately became excited. This was especially so for Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, Qi Weisi, and the others. Zhao Qianqiu was their direct instructor. On their first day on the mountain, Zhao Jingdian's unique ferocious tiger teachings had made them suffer quite a bit. Gongzi, you can do it. Teach the instructor a lesson. Zhuang Jingping and Qi Weisi mustered their courage and cheered. If it had been any other time, they wouldn't have dared to do so. The two of them knew that instructor Zhao had a powerful background. He was completely different from the other instructors. After placing the chess set on the chessboard, they placed a jar of black and white stones beside them. The surrounding Ren sect disciples immediately gathered around them. Even Zhou Huang was the same. He stared at the duo curiously. As an instructor, you should give in to your students. I can't allow others to say that I'm bullying the weak. Come, you go first. I'll give you a handicap of 3 stones. Zhao Qianqiu stretched out his palm and expressed his generosity right from the start. Since he wanted to teach Wang Chong a lesson and make him give up on the idea, naturally, he had to make the other party admit defeat. It should be enough to let him go first and give him a handicap of 3 stones. All right. Wang Chong smiled calmly and accepted Zhao Qianqiu's goodwill. He placed a stone on the chessboard first. Gongzi, you can do it. Zhao Jingdian broke out in cold sweat for Wang Chong. He hadn't followed Wang Chong for long, so he wasn't too familiar with Wang Chong's chess skills. Zhao Qianqiu, there's no need to get too serious when playing chess with a student. It's fine. Zhou Huang tried to resolve the situation. He had a good impression of Wang Chong. After all, they had been through life and death together. He was also afraid that Wang Chong would lose too badly. However, the development of the matter was completely different from what everyone had imagined. 10 steps later, the smile on Zhao Qianqiu's face vanished. After 20 steps, a deep frown appeared on Zhao Qianqiu's forehead. After 40 steps, Zhao Qianqiu's attention was completely drawn into the chessboard. At the 50th step, Zhao Qianqiu's complexion turned extremely awful. Even those who didn't understand the game of Go could tell that Zhao Qianqiu was in a bad situation, extremely bad at that. As for those who understood Go, their attention had long been drawn to the match between Wang Chong and Zhao Qianqiu. Zhuang Jingping and Qi Weisi were stunned. The duo knew of Zhao Qianqiu's background, and it was for this reason that they were astonished. This round doesn't count. Another round, this round started as normal. Don't give way. At the 80th step, Zhao Qianqiu finally gave up. All right. Wang Chong looked at Zhao Qianqiu, and with a slight smile, he agreed to it readily. This round, Zhao Qianqiu lost even faster. By the 70th move, the game had already collapsed. I'll go first this round. Zhao Qianqiu was still unable to accept his loss to Wang Chong. All right. Wang Chong nodded in agreement. This was already the 3rd round. By the 4th round, no matter how thick-skinned Zhao Qianqiu was, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed. I'll give you a handicap of 3 stones this round. Taking a sip of tea, Wang Chong took the initiative to ask Zhao Qianqiu. With a darkened face, Zhao Qianqiu nodded his head heavily, but he didn't say a single word. In this round, Zhao Qianqiu played exceptionally slowly and cautiously, and the further he went, the slower he became. In the end, Zhao Qianqiu wasn't able to leave the deflecting blade manner. After the 4th round, Zhao Qianqiu sat by himself, staring at the board with a grim expression. Compared to when he first arrived, it was a world of difference. Wang Chong, can we play a round? Zhou Huang suddenly asked Wang Chong with an eager gaze. He was a master archer, and on the battlefield, all he had to do was to follow orders and fire arrows at any moment. But who wouldn't want to become a talented general? Zhou Huang could tell that Wang Chong was truly talented in the art of war. Zhou Huang could only explain it as a legacy from a general and minister clan. Of course. Wang Chong chuckled and agreed to it without any hesitation. Soon, another person appeared beside Zhao Qianqiu, and he stared at the board silently as well. Zhao Qianxiu and Zhou Huang weren't able to leave the deflecting blade manor, and this was something they didn't expect. That lad has returned to the barracks. At this moment, Wang Chong, Zhao Jingdian, Zhuang Jingping, Zhao Qianxiu, and Zhou Huang had no idea that in an extremely distant place, a group of people was standing on a mountain peak, silently looking in the direction of deflecting blade manor. The autumn wind blew, and from where they were standing, they could clearly see the deflecting blade manor, which was only the size of a fingernail. Even though they couldn't see it clearly, they could still make out the silhouettes in the distance. I knew that lad must have some ulterior motive for coming to the Kunwa training camp instead of Shunwei and Longwei camps. If I'm not wrong then, Abu Tong, do you believe that he's going to start recruiting soldiers in the training camp soon? On the northern peak of Azure Dragon Peak, Zheng Xian waved his paper fan and chuckled. I heard that Wang Chong and his Wang clan don't have a good impression of the Hu. Abu Tong, I think that you and your father will have to wash the horses of that lad in the future. Abu Tong's face darkened, and he remained silent. On the other hand, the Hu's subordinates behind him were infuriated. Zheng Xian, there's no need for you to provoke me. If I'm not mistaken, His Highness King Qi isn't faring too well either. The King of Song and the Wang clan are able to squeeze him dry in the royal court. Abu Tong said coldly. The calm expression on Zheng Xian's face froze in an instant. Abu Tong, there's no need for us to criticize one another. The Wang clan is simply too powerful at the moment, and all of this is due to that lad. If we don't do something about it, neither of us will have a good time. Zheng Xian waved his paper, and he soon regained his composure. What do you intend to do? Abu Tong asked grimly. Hee, it seems like we've reached an agreement. Zheng Xian's smile eased up. Then, it'll be easier for us to discuss the rest. The Kunwa training camp is still considered the capital, so we can't do anything to that lad. However, there's no need for us to do so either. That lad from the Wang clan wouldn't do anything meaningless. As long as we know what he's up to, we can just do the opposite. Thinking of Deng Mingxin, Zheng Xian's heart ached. Initially, he didn't intend to stand up for Wang Chong. As for King Qi, he could just feign civility and deal with him. But while he was at home, trouble would descend from the heavens. Deng Mingxin's matter had put him in a very passive position, and even the gazes of those around him had changed. Since it was Wang Chong who provoked him, he couldn't be blamed for his actions. That lad is no simple character. He built a residence there, and it's located right next to the training camp. There's a high chance that he's trying to win over the hearts of the people here. Since we know what he's after, the rest is simple. All we have to do is to stop him. Zheng Xian sneered coldly. But the royal court has already banned the purchase of land. That lad's residence is probably unique in this region. It's impossible for us to obtain it. Abu Tong said grimly. Clearly, he had already tried it before. Hee, that's because you didn't find the right person. It's not that I'm biased against you or look down on you. However, it's better for us Han to deal with this matter ourselves. I've already told King Qi that I've requested a plot of land from the Court of Judicial Review. It should be completed in another 7 to 8 days. Zheng Xian said. Abu Tong was taken aback. It was as if he was meeting Zheng Xian for the first time. Hee, what are you looking at? That lad's residence has been under construction for several months now. I'm not blind. Did you think that I would only take action now? Zheng Xian said. If it's really as you say, then I've truly underestimated you. Abu Tong gazed deeply at Zheng Xian. This fellow gave him a feeling that he would be an extremely difficult opponent to deal with. But why don't I see your residence? Abu Tong asked doubtfully. He scanned the surroundings, but there was no sign of human activity in the surrounding mountains. Of course you can't see it. That's because I've specially requested for it. I have to leave the trees on the periphery intact. I'll only chop them down after the construction is complete. Zheng Xian said with an unfathomable expression. Those who are skilled in battle are not worthy of fame. If you want to deal with someone, you can't let them be prepared. Abu Tong, you fellows are too high profile. This is also the reason why you attract so much hatred. King Qi still holds you in high regard. Abu Tong harumphed coldly. Of course, he didn't believe Xianxian's words. "Speak, what do you want me to do?" Wutong went straight to the point. It's simple. I'll rope in the students of the Kunwa training camp to recruit talents for King Qi. On the other hand, you'll warn those students that whoever dares to follow Wang Chong, whoever dares to step into Wang Chong's residence will be an enemy of King Qi and the Hu. What you have to do is to teach those fellows a lesson. Even if we can't make a move on Wang Chong, can't we teach those juniors a lesson? As long as we beat them into submission, naturally, no one will join the Wang clan's side. With King Qi backing us, I would like to see who dares to go against us. Abu Tong, I'll leave this matter to you, right? Xianxian asked. Abu Tong glared at him hatefully. Naturally, he knew what Xianxian was up to. However, Abu Tong didn't object to the idea. As you wish. After saying those words, Abu Tong turned around and left with his Hu subordinates. Looking at Abu Tong's departing back, a smile slowly crept onto Xianxian's lips. Who was more suitable than a Hu to be his subordinate? More importantly, who was more suitable than the son of Great General Abusi? There was still plenty of room for the Hu Great General to work with the Wang clan. Chapter 297. Translator, Mr. Voltaire. Editor. Modlaws 123. The land was vast and boundless, with mountains rising and falling like the waves of the sea. This was a vast plateau. The sky was high and the clouds were deep. The terrain was far higher than any of the surrounding lands, any of the countries. From here, one could see the world. In the Tang dynasty, this place was known as the Uzan. Huashu, you see it. Over here, over those mountains, the Tang dynasty is in the distance. The wind howled. At this moment, at the highest point of the mountains, at the edge of the plateau, a middle-aged man dressed in black stood against the wind. His aura was majestic, like a mountain range. Using the goose feather fan in his hand, he pointed to the end of the horizon, exuding the aura of a ruler. The man had a scholarly demeanor, and his eyes were filled with wisdom. He looked like a person from the Central Plains. However, the slightly rough yellow skin under his sleeves revealed his identity. The people here couldn't be any more authentic than the people of the Uzan. "Milord, you see it." Beside the middle-aged man was a valiant general. His feet were apart, and a long saber hung from his waist. He stood there like a spear stabbed into the ground, giving off the feeling of an immovable mountain. His body wasn't very tall, but the aura he exuded was as vast and boundless as the ocean. And that sharp aura he exuded seemed to be able to split apart a mountain in front of him with a single slash. But so what if you see it? That land isn't suitable for grazing horses or sheep. Your subordinate doesn't understand. Why is Milord always thinking about that place? Huashu Wuzong said indifferently. There wasn't the slightest change in his eyes. He knew what his superior wanted to say. But as a general, he had no interest in such things. Huashu, you're wrong. Hearing the words of his subordinate, Daluan Ruozan retracted his goose feather fan and chuckled. Although the Tang dynasty isn't suitable for grazing horses or sheep, it produces the most beautiful silk in the world. It has the most grain and the most cities in the world. The people of the highlands should rule over the people of the lowlands. Huashu, don't you think so? Milord, please think about it. Your subordinate is a crude man who only knows how to fight. Huashu Wuzong said lightly. His expression was firm as he stood there motionlessly. Even his eyelashes did not tremble. Moreover, the Tang people may not be as easy to deal with as you think. Huashu Wuzong said indifferently. As General Uzan, Huashu Wuzong never looked down on others, but he would never underestimate his opponents either. If Uzan wanted to expand, the Tang dynasty was the best direction. However, even to this day, the Uzan Empire had never succeeded. Not because he was benevolent, but because he was too stubborn. The Uzan Empire was divided by the royal family. Qi de Zuzan, who resided in the capital city of Luosa, had a supreme position. Under Qi de Zuzan's jurisdiction, there were 4 royal lineages, which were ruled by Qi de Zuzan's 4 younger brothers. They were the Elisa royal lineage, the Lesa royal lineage, the Yez royal lineage, and the Yarlung royal lineage. Huashu Wuzong and Daluan Ruozhen belonged to the Elisa royal lineage that ruled over the southeast. Here, they were bordered by the Tang dynasty's Jiannan, and they weren't too far away from Erai's Mengshi Zhao. In these 2 years, the Tang dynasty's southern protector general Zhangqiu Jianqiong and Mengshi Zhao's King Zhelifeng were their main enemies. The 180,000 elites of the Tang dynasty's southern protectorate manor were like a nail hammered into their hearts, exerting immense pressure on them. "Ha, Huashu, have you heard? Your nemesis Zhangqiu Jianqiong is going to be transferred to the capital. He intends to become the Minister of War of the Tang dynasty. That's not an insignificant position." Daluan Ruozhen suddenly chuckled. "Is the news reliable?" Huashu Wuzong was taken aback for a moment before a hint of interest appeared on his face. "It hasn't been confirmed yet. However, according to our informants, there's at least an 80% chance of it happening." Daluan Ruozhen replied confidently. "Hehe, without Zhangqiu Jianqiong around, the Tang dynasty's Jiannan is a void. Huashu Wuzong, this is a great opportunity for us." As he spoke, he turned to look at Great General Uzun beside him with an indiscernible smile. Huashu Wuzong's lips twitched slightly, but he soon regained his composure. "It's useless. Zhangqiu Jianqiong's military might is a mix of truth and falsehood, and the news that you received might not be true. Perhaps he was the one who intentionally leaked the news. Besides, even if he were to leave, he would surely have made preparations beforehand. He and I have been rivals for a long time. He won't be an easy opponent to deal with." Zhangqiu Jianqiong isn't an easy opponent. However, the same can't be said for his successor, Xinyu Zhongte. If Zhangqiu Jianqiong is transferred to the Tang dynasty's capital, Huashu, you'll have to prepare yourself. We'll be waging war against the Tang dynasty soon." Daluan Ruozhen complimented with deep meaning in his eyes. "I'm not afraid of war, but Lord, there's no turning back. Are we really prepared for it?" Huashu Wuzong gripped the hilt of his saber tightly as he replied. The Tang people were no pushovers. This had been proven countless times in the past. In the past 1,000 years, the Tang dynasty was the only territory that Uzun had yet to conquer. Similarly, the Uzun Empire was also a territory that the Tang dynasty had yet to conquer. Every single war, once started, was difficult to end. As one of Uzun's generals, Huashu Wuzong knew this all too well. As a warrior, Huashu Wuzong lived for war. War was his calling. But as one of Uzun's generals, Huashu Wuzong had to consider the empire behind him. It's different this time." Daluan Ruozhen chuckled as he fanned himself. There was an indescribable glint in his eyes. "This time, it's the will of the gods. The Magisprius have asked 3 times, and all 3 times, the same prophecy was given. The crisis comes from the east. This is a crisis that concerns the survival of our Uzun Empire. If we can't nip this crisis in the bud, then our Uzun Empire will be beyond redemption. Huashu, you should know when was the last time the same prophecy was given 3 times, right?" Daluan Ruozhen nodded with a serious expression. On this lonely plateau, there wasn't just one civilization or one dynasty. Thousands of years ago, there was another powerful dynasty on this plateau. However, this powerful dynasty suddenly perished overnight, and all traces of it were erased. Now, people only knew its name, Zhangsheng Dynasty. That was the Duzong Dynasty, which was even older than the 7 Crimson Sky Kings. Almost no one knew about this ancient Uzun Empire. Only the higher-ups of Uzun Empire knew about it. That was the last time the same prophecy was given 3 times. All these years, the prophecy had successfully prophesied the rise of Mount Goddess, the appearance of the Great Snow Mountain Temple, and the era of the 7 Crimson Sky Kings. In the Uzun Empire, the prophecy was a higher existence than the Great Snow Mountain Temple. Even the holy monks of the Great Snow Mountain Temple didn't dare to disobey it. But I want to tell you that although the Magisprius say there are 3 prophecies, there are actually 4. The last one was hidden by Zhangpu. Daluan Ruozhen said. Huashu Wuzong's expression suddenly changed. What does 4 identical prophecies mean? I don't think I need to explain it to you anymore. In the history of our Uzun Empire, this has never happened before. There is only one Tang dynasty in the east of our Uzun Empire. Without a doubt, the crisis comes from the Tang dynasty. Only the Tang dynasty has the strength to topple our Uzun Empire. Right now, Dusong Mengpoj has already brought the first prince to the capital of the Tang dynasty to investigate the situation. I heard that the monarch of the Tang dynasty has suddenly become muddle-headed. I don't know if this is true or not, but I believe that Dusong Mengpoj and the others will soon return with news. Daluan Ruozhen said, his gaze turning to the northeast, piercing through the void to look in the direction of the capital of the Tang dynasty. Standing behind him, Huoshu Wuzong also looked in the same direction. The mountain was quiet, with only the sound of the wind blowing in the distance. It was the sound of countless Uzun warriors training. Rumble. Dust flew in the air. In the northwest of the capital of the Tang dynasty, 10 some elite horsemen galloped along the wide road. It was only 10 some horsemen, but they exuded the aura of an army of thousands. Even the earth seemed to tremble beneath their feet. Haha, this is the Tang dynasty. It's filled with farmers, cloth sellers, and silk sellers. How can such people compare to our Uzun? What right do they have to compete with our Uzun? In front of this group of elite soldiers, an Uzun youth with sword-like eyebrows sat on the back of a horse and heartily laughed in Tibetan. First Prince, this is a good thing. A brawny Uzun man exuding a majestic aura like a storm chased up from the rear. His face was yellow, as if he had been exposed to the sun. Although he wasn't very tall, his aura was as unshakable as a mountain. And what was most striking was his palm. It was especially wide and seemed especially powerful. This person was one of the great generals of the Uzun, Dusong Mengpoj. Dusong was the name of the clan. Mengpoj meant eagle. Only the most outstanding disciples of the plateau would be bestowed the name of Mengpoj by the clan. Every great clan of the Uzun would have one, and only one, Mengpoj. The current Tang dynasty is no longer the Tang dynasty of the past. Right now they like profit, business, and comfort. This is a good thing. A mountain cannot hold 2 tigers. On this continent, there shouldn't be 2 equally powerful empires. The weakening of the Tang dynasty is a good thing for us. Dusong Mengpoj said. He wore a leather hat on his head and wore ordinary clothes to hide his identity. Although this wasn't a particularly brilliant method, the Tang dynasty lacked understanding of the Uzun. Even if they knew of Dusong Mengpoj's name, they might not have seen him in person. But first Prince, don't forget the mission we shoulder. Thus, on this trip to the Tang dynasty, we should do our best to keep a low profile. As Dusong Mengpoj spoke, he stroked his beard. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.